Hi, welcome back. This is Jason Banker from LumosConsulting. Today we're going to be going over video 3 of our series ACI Initial Build. Today we're going to be talking about pod policies. Pod policies are important because they allow us to set certain functions of our infrastructure, management access, Ntp, Snmp, our route reflecting policies, kube policies, ISIS policies, MACsec policies, and we're setting it for the whole fabric rather than individual switches. So in order to configure your pod policy, you will have to go to fabric policies. We don't do much in fabric policies usually, but our pods and policy groups are done day one. We will have to go into system settings and add our route reflectors, but this is the path. This is the kind of the screens that we're going to be touching. So I'm going to go ahead and log into the APIC we've been using. Okay, now that we are in our APIC, we are at our system dashboard. We do want to go into system settings. Within system settings, and this was changed in 3.0, we used to be under fabric policies, but now it's under system settings. We want to go to our BGP route reflector policy. This allows us to select an autonomous system number. This is an autonomous system number that stays local to the fabric. This isn't an autonomous system number. We will peering with an external BGP router. We do want to select a private AS here that we will not be using ever again other than internal to the fabric. If we were using something external, we could use 65001, but we definitely don't want to reuse this because of the internal routing structure. We want to go ahead and add our route reflector nodes. Typically, this is every spine in your environment. In our case, we only have one spine, so that's going to be spine 911. If we had spine 912, we would add that, and if we had another pod, we would put those two spines as well. If you have a large number of spines, up to 6, you want to pick and choose what spines, but I recommend putting as many route reflectors as you can, at least a minimum of 2 per pod. So we're going to go ahead and submit this. This is going to allow routing to occur within our fabric. Now that our route reflector settings are in there, we're going to want to come into fabric. We're going to go to fabric policies. All right, we want to go to our policies. We're going to want to go to our pod policies, and now we have the option of datetime, Snmp, management access, and ISIS policy. So first, we always like to start with Ntp. We're going to go into our policy default. We can go ahead and set up our Ntp servers. Normally this will be one inside your environment. I'm going to go ahead and select one. I'm going to just point to a Ntp server. Typically, again, this will be internal to your environment. We will make it preferred. I can go ahead and hit submit. Right, we can have multiple Ntp servers, one preferred, others not. We can go into our default setting. We can change our format. We can go to local. I am going to go to America's Los Angeles. It doesn't take me too long to find it in the screen. Right, and we are going to go ahead and hit submit. It is going to tell us these are the nodes using this policy. We're going to go ahead and hit submit. Within Snmp has multiple steps. I'm not going to configure anything here, but I will show you. This is where we're going to go ahead and do our group policies or community strings, our Snmp v3 users. There are some other things we have to do under the admin tab, but this is where some of the setup will be needed. Our management access. Right, if we go to our default policy of management access, we will see some settings that allows us to get to the APIC. You can see HTTP is disabled, HTTP is enabled by default, the TLS settings we are using. If you were going ahead and don't like to have the cert page, right, you can go ahead and create your own cert, and there's some steps to follow, but you'll be using this admin keyring. right? The one thing I go day one and turn on, I make sure SSH is on, Telnet is off, and I do want to establish SSH via web. What that means is I can go ahead and SSH from the GUI into a leaf switch. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit here. Right. And last but not least, I do make some changes in the ISIS policy default. The ISIS metric for redistributed routes is 63. I like to go ahead and change it to 62. 63 is the default. So any new spine we're bringing onto our environment will also have 63. And what we don't want is before the spine is fully booted, runs through its system process, startup, it doesn't start, affecting our environment. So if that comes on by a default of 63, we're always going to prefer the lowest. So if my spines that are running are using 62, the new spine will not start forwarding traffic until it receives the pod policy, which is 62. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And important to know, out of the box, all this is going to be using out-of-band management. Again, some of this can be changed to in-band management, but day one, or I like to call day 0, it will be using the OOB. So do understand it will be using the out-of-band connections out of your spines and leaves, as well as APICs. So we like to make sure those are configured and plugged in up in order to move forward. So now we're going to have to go into pods. Up top, we're going to have to create a policy group. So we're going to create a pod policy group. I'll call this Lumos pod policy. We're going to select default values here. Again, I could have named a new value, but I just typically use the default. Right, so we'll run through here, use the default values. Right, we're going to hit submit. And the last key piece to here, under the profiles, you're going to have a pod profile default. Right, we want to go ahead and select that value we just created. So we're going to select our pod policy. We're going to hit submit. It's going to tell us everything that's going to be using this pod policy in the future. Right, I can go up here too, and we should see it selected over here. So this is something that we need to do day 0 before you start running production traffic. Again, Route Reflector is going to go ahead and give you routing on your fabric. You do need NTP. You want synchronization across your infrastructure, especially your fabric. Snmp, I can't say I do day 1 all the time, but it is a value needed as we build this fabric. Management access, I do turn on SSH. And the ISIS policy default, again, something I do for preventative measures. Thank you for joining, and see you for video 4.